And so for the actors, what was your first reaction when you read the script for Spontaneous? Catherine, let's start with you.
It was kind of that thing where I read it and I went into it kind of like not knowing what to expect. And then there was this kind of story that felt, I think, like Aaron said before, like this existential romance, which is two of the weirdest things to kind of combust together. No pun intended. But it really did feel like, oh, this feels cool, but it also felt truthful. It didn't feel like it was necessarily pandering in terms of, when you read things written about young people, sometimes it feels like it's written for them as opposed to coming from them. And Brian just had such an amazing way of, turning this script and turning this journey into something that felt really cool and exciting. And then also the fact that, I think Brian at the time, you might have been coming off of Babysitter. And to me, it was really incredible, kind of having that package deal of someone who's written such and created such an incredible world, who's also doing his directorial debut, and really, having that at the helm, because it does feel like a very special genre and a very unique. And it's one of those things that looking back, I just love. And I've watched it multiple times because I just enjoy it. So that was kind of my reaction.
Mhm. So I wanted to ask, the actors, specifically like Charlie and Catherine, what was that like having to deal with constantly being covered in so much fake blood?
I just remember it being very sticky. The shower after work would be particularly messy and red and gross.
Yeah.
But I remember particularly there's one scene, without giving anything away, where there is a lot of blood, and there might even be like waterfalls of blood, you might say, and that was pretty spectacular to get to be a part of.
The thing Charlie's talking about, it took a couple of days. It was actually the first few days that we had on set, and it was a lot of like we were very fit that week. It was a lot of running, a lot of stickiness. One of my friends recently was Googling me for some reason, because that's what they like to do. And she just sent me this photo, and it's this photo that I think they took when I was outside, and I'm literally covered head to toe.
I love that
Photo went everywhere when we were filming, and everyone was like, what the are you guys like doing? But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
And speaking of Haley's character, while the movie is this explosive love story, I was so into the BFF love that Mara and Tess share, because they feel like the kind of best friends that everyone wants to have throughout their lives. So Catherine and Haley, can you talk about what that was like bringing that story to life?
It was fun. It's I feel like it's easy when you're working with nice, fun people. Honestly, not it doesn't feel like intense acting when the person you're acting with is actually like cool and funny. So I think it was really great to do that. It wasn't like, I have to be best friends with Catherine. Like it was super easy.
What if that happens to you?
It won't.
How do you know that? Promise.
I can't promise you.
No, why? Just promise me. Promise or I'll scream. Promise, please.
It'll be fine.
That's not very convincing, but if you go, like, I'm coming. And if I go, I'm taking you too. I'm serious.
I think it's nice to have, when you have these characters like kind of bounce off of each other, you suddenly get this medium, and that was really nice to have, and really nice to work with talented and lovely open people. I also want to give a shout out to all the supporting artists that we had who aren't on this panel right now, but we were just so lucky with the caliber of people who came in. And you watch this, and some of these characters have the most bizarre, wonderful lines and deliveries, and they just did such a fantastic job, which I think also was really cool to be able to have. So shout out to them, and shout out to casting on that. It is satirical, and there's this kind of really existential element to the film, but in order to balance that out and not just have, this pure kind of satire running through the entirety of the movie, I think it really needed those powerful, strong moments of humanity. And when I think back on filming, there's like scenes that I would read that instantly, when you read them, they just kind of hit you right here. And both you and Piper have two of those scenes. And without kind of ruining it, it's just, there was this moment in the scene, I'm going to say, like, kind of when things were down and dark and things, and you have this really caring paternal moment. And I just remember it being like, I was like, oh, how do I do this without ruining it? But I was there, and it's the way you delivered it, it was just so heartfelt. And I remember, like, when we were filming, how amazing that was, because like both you and Piper are absolutely hilarious in between takes, and then you would go into these really beautiful, just like honest human moments that I feel like people, when they watch this, like those to me are going to be the real moments that people are like, wow, like, yeah, that hits close to home. Like, yes, I've had that conversation, or yes, I've said that to my parents or my daughter or whoever. So that was really beautiful, like, to see and to work with.
So how did filming this movie give you guys hope for the future despite everything that's going on in the world?
I remember thinking, I hope we never go through anything like this.
I think it has quite an affirmation for life, because there is talk of the future and there is always talk of moving forward. And even in those moments where it does get kind of like very in the moment and very stuck on that moment, in ways reflecting on it now, obviously in these times, it kind of just reminds me of the kind of learning curve that I think a lot of people have gone through, not to be like on the nose or pull too much from reality, but you know, when you're faced with adversity or when you're faced with these really difficult times, you go through all these big emotions and despair and not knowing. And then you get to a point where you realize, like, every day is still a day. Like, you don't know what's ever going to come. So just kind of take it as it is and move forward. And I think there's something about where the film lands, which is really, it just lands on that. It lands on that note of acknowledgement, but then also of that kind of affirming moving forward. And that feels really, it feels really nice, and it feels really real without being like overly hopeful or like peppy or, you know, kind of overdoing it in that way. So I think it was a really nice way to kind of map out, both story-wise on Aaron's part, but then also Brian for kind of executing that whole thing. I think it's a dream when you work on something like this, where it is specific and it is different and unique. Like this is a script that so many people gravitated towards and were so excited about, not just from actors or, you know, crew, but also like agents, people who were reading this basically were just so excited. And I think it's a dream when you make something like this, to have someone like Brian Duffield at the helm, who is there and who believes in his vision, and who also believes in everyone else, even more than you believe in yourself. And I think truly, like, that's such a testament to him. And also I think that's part of the magic that tied the film together, is the passion that drives this. And at the core of it, I think that's like what good films are made of, you know, it's people believing in something and not just, you know, spending cold nights and long days and quick days trying to do it, but then, you know, really wanting to put this vision together. And because it's a lot of behind the scenes, but I think it really elevated this, and it's very cool. And I can't wait personally for Brian's next script.
I really appreciate every single person who watches the trailer and shares it. And Catherine's got like an army of fans that it's just like, I get messages every day that it's like, Katherine Langford fan 101, Katherine Langford for life. And I'm like, I love it. I love reading the comments. Most of them are great. And they're just like, Charlie Plummer, oh, I'm so excited. Charlie Plummer's taking over the world. And I'm like, you bet he is. And I just love seeing the support. And it's just like a great little family. And I'm just so thankful for everyone.